Hello, everybody. Welcome to IST 140. I'm, of course, Professor S. What we're going to be doing today, what we're going to be talking about is switch statements. We're going to do how to use nested if statements. Like, what does that look like? Why would you do that? Then we're going to do thinking about basic logical expressions. We kind of already hinted at some of this before. And then thinking about comparing string order and character methods. And then finally, I'll do a walkthrough. Okay. Anyways, switch statements. So the idea is like, let's say you have a variable month num, and you want to determine, because we sometimes represent the months by the number, right? So January would be first, September, or February would be second, so on and so forth, right? And so say you want to say, all right, I know the month number is this. I want to do, I need to come up with the name of it. Right? So you would use maybe this if-else statements to kind of come up with it, right? So if it's 7, it's July. If it's 8, it's August, so on and so forth, right? Now, the switch statement kind of makes like the kind of categorical numbers like kind of easier to kind of find. And here, I'll just show you what it is. So the idea is like we have this switch statement. And so it says, all right, we have a number. And so that number is attributed to each one of these different cases. And so I know that there's 12 months, so I only need 12 cases, right? And I'm holding my hand up and it says 5, but it's 12. You also need to have a default at the end just in case it's not one of those cases mentioned. And then you have a break after each of the statements so it knows to stop there. Like, so for instance, let's say that we put in the month num is 8, right? So we said that that's August. So no, it goes down to case 8. It skips down to case 8. It says, all right, so the month num has to be August, and then break, meaning it gets out of that block. We haven't talked about getting out of blocks yet. That's actually something that we kind of work on with loops. But as far as the switch statement, it just ends out of there. Otherwise, it would go down to case 9 and change month name to September, and then I guess it would break because there's a break there, right? All right, so anyways, those breaks are important, and we'll kind of see that in the walkthrough later. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about nested if statements. And so that's also something that we will work on in the program. Nested means inside. We've already talked about if statement, so it's a if statement inside another if statement. It's kind of like Inception, right? All right, so anyways, the thing that I usually think of is like the guess who that I grew up with. Where first you ask, like, is it a woman? And so that answer is either yes or no. So if it's no, it's false. And if it is, it's true, right? And so then after that, you knock down the people that aren't women, and you're left with some women. And so then you ask, like, okay, does she have a hat? And so if it's no, then you move on and ask another question. But if it is, you knock down the ones that don't have a hat, and you're left with some, like probably Janice, I guess. And then you say, all right, is it Janice? And if it is, you didn't win. But if it is, you won, right? And so like our nested if statement could look like this, where we have like the different variables, like they're true depending upon if that event is true. And so notice it's if statements inside of if statements. It's pretty easy. Like I said before, the hard part isn't so much about using the if statements, or it's like the syntax for the if statements. It's the what goes inside those parentheses, those conditions, right? So sometimes one of the things you want to do is you want to have two events. So if you remember in the last video, and if you want to rewatch that, wait till the end of this video, or slide the little thing at the bottom here to the end, or to the end. Sorry, it's a mirror for me. And I have a link to the last video. You can watch that. But one of the things that you can do is sometimes you want to compare Boolean values, and depending upon that comparison will depend upon if you got it or not. And so I'm not just saying like Boolean equals another Boolean. Sometimes you want to say, all right, if both of these are true, or if at least one of these is true. And that's what the and the or is. So the and is when both of them are simultaneously true. So if they're both true, then we want it to be, then we say like do this. So like for instance, I used it in the last one when I was introducing the if-else statements. So it was like if it is, let's see, less than or equal to, wait, no, if it's less than 90 and greater than or equal to 87, so it puts it in that range. And so remember, it does that and with the 2 ampersands, right? And so if both of those are true, then we know that it must be a B+, right? If you want one of them to be true, then you use the single lines, and that's the the backslash. It's like shift backslash. That's the thing above. In my keyboard, it is the it's right up above the enter. Here, I'll show you. See, it's that one right there. I don't know how well you can see it with my colored, my light up keys. But anyways, that's where that one is. And so that means at least one of those is true. That's or. So either, or it's not either. It's Boolean 1 is true or Boolean 2 is true is how we kind of read that. And that means at least one of those is true. So if both of them are true, we're good. If only one of them is true, we're good. Okay. So some things to think about. So if we have true and true, what are we going to get? It's going to be true, right? Because both of them are true. If we have false or true, then at least one of those is true. So it's true. What about this one? True and false. So if we have a Boolean expression that's true and the other one is false, then it's going to be false because remember for and, they both have to be true. And then if we have false and false, then that's going to be false because they're both not true. Also, if we have false or false, then not at least one of them is true, so it's also false. We've already talked about when we're comparing strings, like if they're the same, but like sometimes we know they're not the same and we want to place them in an order. And so compare to helps us figure out that order. What it does is it returns a number. And so that number is either negative, 0, or positive, right? If it's 0, then that means that they're the same. If it's negative, then that means 1 comes before word 2. If it's positive, then that means word 1 comes after word 2. Okay? We'll do an example of this in the walkthrough so you can kind of see it in action. Personally, like I oftentimes can't remember if it's negative or if it's positive, like what that means. So I have to do a little test to figure it out. And I'll walk you through how that is. Okay? Kind of help you learn how you think about things that you might not remember exactly. Like, you know that you don't remember it, but how do you figure out what it is, right? You could look up in the slides like I have here, or you could figure it out. And I'll show you how to help figure it out so you don't have to memorize it. I don't like memorizing things too much, so it'll be a way to help you figure out things that you don't want to memorize, right? All right, so anyways, we have character methods. So we have string methods, but we also have character methods. And the way that these work is that you use the character class. You don't use the variable or you don't use the thing. What you do is you put that character value inside the parentheses. So like if I have the single quote A and I put that in the is letter, that method would return it true. If I did character is digit, the single quote A, it'd be false. And it doesn't have to be the literal. It could also be the variable. The variable also works. And then also white space, there's 3 different possibilities. That's from the space bar, the tab, or the enter. Carriage return, if you will. And then the next thing is like 2 uppercase, 2 lowercase, that sort of thing. We'll do some examples and see that in action with the practice problems on Monday. But anyways, what I want to do is think about the prompt for user 2 words and tell which one is first and which one is second. Before we go to the walkthrough, I want to remind you that make sure you do you'll want to try to have the Zybooks done before next class, and you'll also want to do the practice quiz before next class, because after the end of next class, practice quiz is over and the real quiz is up. Okay. Anyways, make sure you try to do that. If you want to do the practice quiz, you're not required to. It doesn't affect your grade if you don't. I just think it's helpful you get some practice. Why not use it? Right. All right. Anyways, let's go into the IntelliJ and see this in action. All right. Here I am in IntelliJ with my incomplete pick a color program, what we're going to do is we're going to do the thing that it says in the slides, where we're going to compare words. So we need to read 2 words that the user gives and sees what the order of them is, right? And so if you think about it, we have word 1 and word 2, right? And so the order is like either word 1 comes before word 2, or word 2 comes before word 1, or they're the same and it doesn't matter, right? So we got to read all those different things. Also, we want to use the switch. So let's kind of create a new program. So new Java class, compare words. Awesome. All right. And so now we're going to do a public static void main string args. All right. Now, that's a lot to think about all at once. So the way that I like to try to address my programs, as I've been modeling in the past programs walkthroughs that I've done, is that we want to try to plan it out. So then what we do is we kind of think about how we want to do this program and address it in little bite-sized chunks, right? So first thing I want to do is I'm going to be reading words, right? So reading things that user enters. So I want to create a scanner object. And then I want to prompt the user for 2 words. And then I'm going to determine if the order of the words with nested if statements. And then I kind of want to do the same thing, but with switch statements. So instead of if, switch statements, right? All right. So first thing, create a scanner object. Well, if I do this, so scanner in, because I like in personally, new scanner system in. So I created the scanner object, but notice that scanner is red. That's because I didn't import it. So I have to go up to public class, enter, and do import Java .scanner, util.scanner. Awesome. Oops. There we go. There we go. And so now what I want to do is prompt the user for 2 words. So system out print enter in the first word and this is going to be a string that we're going to store it as. I'm having a time typing today. All right. And so our object is scanner. And we wanted, it's a word, so we don't need to, we wanted to stop with the spaces. All right. And then we do string word 2. Oh, wait, no. I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to prompt for user for a second word. So I'm just going to take this, copy and paste. And so enter in second word and call this word 2. Cool. So notice, prompt the user for 2 words. I prompted for the first word, read what the user said, prompt the user for a second word, read what it said. All right. So now I'm going to do the if statements here. So if word 1 compare to word 2. Shoot. Do you remember what the slide said about word 1 and word 2? Like if it makes a positive or negative number, but if it's positive or negative, let's just say negative, does that mean that word 1 comes before word 2 or word 2 comes before word 1? See, I have a hard time memorizing these sometimes, so I'm going to do what I know and then kind of go from there and then kind of guess and check. And you can use Java to kind of figure that out. So, like, for instance, I know that when they equal 0, like compared to the compared to method gives a number and it's either positive, negative, or 0. And so I don't remember what the positive or negative means. We can actually use Java to help us figure that out. But what we can do is we know what the 0 is, and that means they're the same. So let's just get that out of the way right now. So equals 0. So that means we'll just print out they're the same. Awesome. Also, one of the things that I want to point out is that when you do this if statement, before you do this open bracket, don't put a semicolon there. Otherwise, you're going to confuse the program because it's not going to know what you're doing with this block. The important thing for the then is saying like, all right, after this if statement, then you do all this stuff. When you put that semicolon there, then you're saying you're done with that if statement. Java just gets confused. So just make sure you don't have a semicolon after your if statement. You want to have that open braces. Okay. All right. Now there's like the else, which means if it's not 0. So that means if it's positive or negative, right? So we'll just do the else, and then we'll do a nested if statement in here. So if word 1 is, we'll just do the same thing. Just copy and paste this because I'm not typing too good. If it is less than 0, then now this is where we'll say we'll just do a test, right? So let's just try to assume that word 1 comes before word 2 if it's less than 0, but if it's greater than 0, we'll switch them. Okay, so system out. We'll say word 1 is before word 2. Wonderful. And then else, this is word 2 is before word 1. All right, let's run this and see, like test it out, make sure we're right. If not, we can switch it. The important thing is that we switch things. And look at here. I had colons instead of semicolons, and Java is confused. And so am I. Why did I do that? All right, so here I run it. All right, so enter in the first word. I'm going to do apple. And then I'm going to do zebra. Because I know the first word has to be before the second word, right? Because apple usually comes before zebra. So then we have here, and so notice it was able to determine apple is before zebra. So right here, it entered these words. It said it determined if it was 0. It's not. So then it goes to this else, and it says, all right, well then, is it less than 0 or not? And so remember, we don't have to consider now if it's 0 anymore because we already did that. We know that it's not 0. So if we know that a number is not 0, then it's either negative or positive, right? So here it tests if it's negative. In this case, it was because word 1 came before word 2. And so notice it also accurately says apple is before zebra. That's the way those words work, right? Like, let's just test it and say like apple and apple. Notice it says that they're the same. And if I do zebra and apple, notice it still says apple is before zebra, okay? Because it said, what it did was it compares the two, and it says, all right, does word 1, is word 1 compared to word 2 less than 0? I guess not, it must be positive, so then it says, all right, well then word 2 is before word 1, okay? That's a basic if statement. It's a nested if statement. That's not too complex. Let's try doing it with the switch statement. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the like the idea is like, remember with switch we have to have some sort of integer case to kind of go by, right? And so we have, we'll just do a int compare. And I'm going to start this off at 0. So it's going to be either 0, 1, or 2, right? If it's 0, then that means that they're the same. If it's 1, then that means word 1 comes before word 2. And if it's 2, then word 2 comes before word 1. Okay, so, but I'm going to say, let's just start with, we have to start somewhere with this. We'll just say compare is equal to 0. And so then let's see. So then if we say if, well, we'll just start using this, right? So we'll say if word 1 compared to word 2, so instead of printing this out for now, instead of using this else, I don't want this else right now. We're not going to say that they're the same. We're just going to set compare. Well, that would be equal to 0. You know, it only really matters if it's less than, it's because, remember, 0, they're the same. 1, word 1 comes before word 2, and 2, it's that. So really, we don't even need this one. We need to just, if it is less than 0, then we want to say change compare to something else. Compare would be 1. And we don't want an else, because if it's not less than 0, then it could be equal to 0. The idea is, it's like we already have the base, assuming that they're the same. This is saying, like, all right, when you actually compare them, it's less than 0, so compare is 1. And then the next thing is we want to know, all right, well, what happens if it's not less than 0, or wait, that's greater than 0. That's what we want for here. We want this to be less than 0, so this would be 1. And when it's greater than 0, we want it to be 2. You're probably watching my screen and like, what are you talking about with greater than? All right, so here it's less than 0, so it's negative. And so we're going to have it 1. So we're going to say when they are the same. And so this is like when word 1 is first. And this is when 2 is first. Okay. That's kind of how we'll remember it. So then we'll do our switch statement. So switch, and we'll do compare. And so depending upon where compare is, will depend upon what we do. So we'll do case. Remember, the first one is 0 because that's our first instance. And that is where we'll print out they're the same, right? So I'm going to copy this thing here so it prints out the exact same thing. And then we do break, right? And then, I don't know what does the double thing. So case 1. And then that is where word 1 is first. So that's where we'll use this one right here. And then case 2 is where 2 is first, right? So we'll do this one right here. And then the thing is, it's like, remember with the switch, we have to have a default, and we'll just use that as an error just in case it's not one of those cases, and we'll just say there's like a mistake or something like that. There we go. All right, so let's give this a try. So I'm going to run it, and I'm going to do apple and apple. And notice it says they're the same twice. Great. Let's try doing apple and zebra. It should say apple is before zebra. Oh, apple is before zebra. Apple is before zebra. Apple is before zebra. There was a or zebra. Oh, hold on. There's like, this should be ln. This should be ln. I want these all in the next lines. Similar with these up here. These should be, see, it's just print. we go. All right, so let's try that again. So we'll do apple and zebra again. Apple is before zebra, apple is before zebra, then it says zebra is before apple, and there's a mistake somewhere. So first of all, did I enter in this correctly? So print, yeah, so I must have pressed a double enter before. All right, so now so we had the first thing, everything was right. It's this switch statement that's the weird thing, or this somewhere in here, there's a mistake, right? So we did it when they were the same, it worked out, right? So when it was case 0, it was fine. What happens? Let's just try doing the other way around. So I'm going to do zebra and then apple. Maybe this will work. And so notice it says the apple is before zebra. Cool. Apple is before zebra. Okay. And there is a mistake somewhere. So in the last one, it did like a couple extra lines. This is just doing one extra line, right? And it was like the first time it was wrong. So if you look here, we have word 1. So before, when we did apple and zebra, it would say apple is before zebra. And the next one, it said zebra is before apple. And then it says there was a mistake. It's doing all of these cases, right? You know what the issue is? It's this break. We don't have breaks after these, and it just keeps on going. So I'm going to add a break after each one of these things. Don't need one after this one, because after this one, it should just be over. So let's give that a try, see if that works. And so I want to do zebra, apple. There you go. Apple is before zebra, apple's before zebra, and nothing else. Okay, so it's good. Let's try, just in case, let's do apple and zebra. So it should be apple is before zebra twice. Cool, and that's it. Awesome, that's what we want. So anyways, I think that is good for today. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'll see you all next week. Bye. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please press the like button below. It lets me know I'm doing something right. If you have any questions about any of the content, please send a message to both me and the rest of the teaching team in Canvas, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Don't send it through normal email. You will not get as fast response. If you have any suggestions for how I can make these videos better, please leave in the comments below. Don't forget to roundhouse kick the subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified for the next video. Anyways, I think that's good for now. See y'all later. Bye.